Guys, welcome back to the fourth and final episode of the MaxF 4's commentary series. This final episode will go over the role of melee DPS. This role has a lot of flexibility in inventory. You can bring Void and drop the ZCB Lightbearer. This setup, though, opted not to bring the Ring of Shadows anymore, so I just have all the runes outside of my pouch, or all the runes like in my inventory. I never have to uncharge anything. And yeah, so for melee DPS, you want to certainly bring a Dins for 4s because it really helps with stacking. U-bow pre-fire, I really should have Ultor on here. I had the Belter on from Verzik in the last raid. I think I fixed it there, yep. And then because I have the ZCB, I can one-way ZCB, but without the ZCB, two-way bow. The other thing is I have a two-way here. You can do, like, if you don't bring a second range switch, you can do bow salve, just perfectly fine. So then you'd have to drop something else, not the salve. But I should have, instead of, if you're going to bring just a T-bow and one range switch, I should have instead brought a Masori top, and then you could two-way with that. Masori top gives the same max hit as an Anguish, but more accuracy, of course. The accuracy doesn't matter that much, but it is technically better. So on Maiden here, you pretty much always get like either 12, 15, or 18 second stack proc, all of which are perfectly fine to stack. It's just really instructive. Basically, where in 5s you have 2 Dinzers, in 4s with 1 Dinzer you're always basically the second Dinzer if you're comparing it to 5s. And so on a 12-second proc you do 2 scythes, then you Dins. On a 15-second proc you do 1 scythe, and these scythes are usually on N1. Then you Dins, and then on 18-second proc you insta-Dins. And this is so that you're able to just maintain the same timing relative to when 70s proc, regardless of when 50s proc. Here on Bloat, it is kind of optional to bring a BGS, but it is very useful if you guys noodle on Xarpus, and if you do bring one, you can run through Bloat. That's another variation to the setup. I think I saw him with his BGS out, so I didn't put on. Another variation to the setup is that instead of like ZCB here and the Lightbearer and bolts and all that, instead of that, or you could bring Pnex and do a little bit of money necking Bloat. Other roles can also fit. I think, yeah, Lostix has like 4 Pnex or so on him. And so that way you're able to get like either 3 or 4 slices before it goes down. And that raises the odds of a 1-down from like probably 5% without any necking, or maybe 3% to like 20%, which is pretty nice. Like 20% odds for a money raid means that you're probably going to get 1 down like pretty much once a day at least. Unfortunately, Jules does die to that hand. But yeah. Then yeah, the rest of Bloat is pretty straightforward. Okay, I'll mention something else I have in the inventory. So I also have an Ancestral Top and a Heart. So the Heart gives you a more Sang max hits than a Cult would, but the Ancestral Top is because I didn't bring any Void. If I had like full Void and I also wanted a Mage Switch after Heart, I would definitely bring a Cult, because you can put on Void to I think here I am watching the Ranger's inventory to make sure he buys a stamp. But anyways, so the Occult is better if you have Void to put on to make sure you have enough accuracy. Without that accuracy, the Ancestral Top is much better because you're just going to splash a lot with the Occult. This range pot is not to pot share. The reason I bring the range pot is because it makes it a little easier for the Ranger's inventory. You bring a range pot and then you drop it in the center of Nylo, and the idea is that the Ranger will pick it up when the boss is about to spawn, and then he will pot share it at that point. And then melee DPS is generally basically the West melee in Nylocas, and the West melee, you want to obviously prioritize melees. If there's no melees to hit, then you prioritize ranges, and only then, if there's no ranges, you prioritize mages. It also works out pretty well that way because that's the order of the attack range of your weapons. So like your mage has the highest attack range, your range has the second highest, and then melee, of course, is the lowest attack range. But yeah, this mage right here, I really should have hit the mage with Calm Chris there. And the reason is, if you kill it soon enough, you're able to whack that those splits from that mage before you scythe the 12 doubles. And that can be really good to just like keep the room clear and also save some ticks. Something that's really good to note here is that I am if I swift a small, even if I don't kill it, I will run away from it because I'm assuming that I will kill it. But if I don't kill it, I react and run back to it. That's why you'll see me running back and forth a lot. And then, yeah, here there's no melees to hit. If there's no melees to hit, you can opt to hit bigs if you know that you're not going to stall instead of mage smalls. And the reason for that is mage smalls are much more likely to clump with other mage smalls. So here, if I had stood back a tick there, I would have been able to scythe. You can watch here, I swift and then do end up standing back, and I can scythe both. But yeah, mage smalls are much more likely to clump than mage bigs. I probably could have left that 21 ranger because it probably would have just exploded naturally. And then you always want to make sure that you scythe that 25 big as soon as it enters the room. The same with this 26 south. Those are a big deal because you need to get the bigs dead. Here I go for Dins, which is a little questionable. That was a little bit of freestyle. You do not need a Dins to waves. But I think Jules was like screaming at me in PC. I want fucking Dins. But since I did Dins, I probably should have put on a light bear. There, I probably could have just swifted the 30, but I wasn't sure. I misclicked my blowpipe. But I do think the Sang honestly made it so that I overkilled the crab because we end up getting a 9-second spawn here. Hopefully okay. Yeah, I guess I don't. Okay, I end up light bearing here. So obviously I have ZCB. So if I had 100% spec, I would have committed to ZCBing on the first tick and light bearing right away. And then you get back to 80. If it goes melee mage range, then you'll get 80 by then. Here, I still need another, maybe this cycle if it goes range. Okay, it still hasn't gone range yet. So it works out that I'm saving the ZCB. Here it goes range, and I do in fact have spec finally for ZCB. That was pretty risky to wait that long to ZCB because it could have never been ranged later, and then you can't ZCB. Fortunately, the ranger did not puncture the range spot, but it's fine. You can't ZCB and hit a 110 if the boss is already 5 HP or something. You will hit a 1. And yeah, so into Sotetseg again. Without uncharting and recharging stuff, it definitely does save a little bit of time. Oh, the reason I thralled there is because I think I wanted to avenge someone, and then I just decided not to avenge them. So yeah, whatever. Yeah. So basically, on melee DPS, your default roll for Sotetseg is 1-2, and that's just the default roll unless people say anything. Like if you're just doing a max F4 as raid and you don't communicate at all, it's assumed that you'll be 1-2 as melee DPS. You're taking some venges. And then on the maze, chosen, I think I do call. So since it's right here, you could call right 2. And right 2 means that it's 2 tiles from the furthest right tile. So right 1 would be the furthest, but usually people just say all the way right when it's right 1. And then, yeah, 1-2. So I insta-spec your hammer with Ultor, and then you put on Scythe for Bellator. You do with the Master Achievement Diaries, you usually have to rethrow at least once. So even though the thrall timer had 50 seconds on it and I casted it, just boosting up to 30 seconds is perfectly fine to cast it um, because I'm going to have to cast it either now or a little bit later. You want to make sure that you don't spellbook swap as it's about to proc, because you'll end up stalling being teleported. So you'll get teleported a lot later than all the other players, making you really far behind on the maze, which usually ends up getting you killed, since the person inside the maze will often not be like in comms or anything with you and won't be like waiting for you. They'll just be insta-sending. The idea here is I healed Lostix because I thought maybe I could venge him, but unfortunately I don't have venge off cooldown. That's another thing. Like if you're below 50 HP, that HP is useless if you're trying to venge yourself, because you don't want a chance of 50. But it can be used to heal other players. With the Lightbearer here and ZCB, you can do a hammer and then wait a regen cycle, and then Lightbearer once you're 60%, and do 10 sites and ZCB. That's the way I like to do it. You can Lightbearer right away, and then do the second regen cycle with the first two regen cycles with. So there, I thought Lostix would stay on the tile, and the reason I walked south is to like indicate that I would get a next one, but he had the same idea in his head. Again, this is an example in fours of how the exhumes are flexible. Like I did end up on the opposite corner of where I started, and that's good to be able to be that flexible, even though we did make some mistakes there. Okay, again, I'm going to the middle because Nylophobia had to go over, and then yeah, so Home Chris got that one, and then I was in the middle, so I was able to get the one next to it. Here again, I may forget about it, but you want to just be aware, like you have this in your inventory. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, melee DPS generally I do have a BGS, so if it's really bad specs, I will back up. But generally they're like the last line of defense of backing up, and you'll just expect the ranger to back up BGS before you do in Xarpus. So you start out with a hammer. If you guys only hit like one hammer out of the 3 hammers, you're also expected to rehammer, and the major will do another scythe instead of BGSing. There, okay, I do put on the Lightbearer. I also have the bolts on, and I that way I am ready to ZCB. Checking my spec. It's now 70, so in a little bit it will be 80, and once it's 80, I can ZCB. You can, if you bring a God book, manipulate your spec with Lightbearer, so that you can do the whole fight with your Ultor on and never use Lightbearer at all. Unfortunately, Nylophobia died there. I think I do a really good tactic here, maybe. Oh no, never mind. Okay, that was later. Oh no, yeah, I do it. Okay, yeah. So this is really good tech. You really want to hammer bop as Xarpus dies, and do the double death, because it's just really epic. And yeah, that's a guaranteed plus 10 karma right there. Like you might not get the purple that raid, but like your next purple is just guaranteed to be a scythe if you hammer bop in that scenario, and it kills Xarpus as it kills you. I think it's even plus 20 karma if you happen to tick eat it. I should have been able to tick eat that, but that RNG, I guess. So for P1, melee DPS again is automatic. Just default roll is 4 in Hado. For 4 in Hado, you do 3 sites, and then if it's on time, so unfortunately the guy had the staff in his inventory and he was spam clicking the boss thinking that someone else had the staff. But anyways, if the staff is on time to you as roll 4, then you are able to pick it up, and then as you pick it up, so because it came late to me, this is also really instructive. So because it came late to me, I tried to 1-tick spec with the ZCB. I didn't misclick, but if I had misclicked the ZCB, so I didn't equip the if I had misclicked the Dawnbringer, so I was wearing the ZCB and then tried to spec with the ZCB, since I didn't have the bolts on, I would have lost 5 ticks. It would have tried to shoot the bolt, but it wouldn't have used any spec, and I could have just still done 2 more Dawn autos. Instead, I just did a Dawn auto, but I could have done 2 like specs and still dropped it to the Ranger in time. Whereas if I had tried to like pick it up faster and spec sooner with a different spec weapon like claws, then I might have claw specced if I had misclicked in the way I described. Whereas with the ZCB, nothing happens because you don't have the pulse equipped. Lost some ticks there at the start of P2. That's just bad RNG. You do want to make sure that you're generally you'll have one like DPS roll. DPS roll means like range or melee DPS, non-freezers. You'll have one DPS roll on either side. So for this example, like I'm on the west side and the ranger is on the east side, and that's makes it a lot easier to venge your majors before P3. So here I just got my venge cooldown, but I'm gonna wait for my death charge to run out as well, and that way I am because I'm still on Arceus right now, so I'm gonna cast our death charge. Now I'm gonna venge Lost Ticks. Yep. And see, another thing to note, like all of that stuff I was thinking about like 30 seconds before it happened. So right here, I'm stepping back on 1 on the tick counter on the bottom right. So I'm not always looking at that tick counter, but here, if I take notice of it, I'm stepping back on 1, and you just subtract 1 from what you're stepping back, and that's the number you're going to click on forward when you go for the skip. So I was stepping back on 1, so that means I'm going to click now on 4. And I do click on 4. There we go. And that's how you time that spec. The other thing interesting to note is I'm clicking like to run away from the boss there because the crab went right next to where I was clicking, and that makes it easier to, because if I click the crab there, I wouldn't have actually backed off from Verzik and probably would have gotten bounced. Another thing here, I did end up venging another DPS roll, so he's on Lunars, so I shouldn't have venged him. But an interesting thing to note in money raids, you don't all have venge the way you do in speedruns. So if the first auto does not pop your venge, you want to venge someone else that the first auto did pop. That way your venge gets off cooldown, and ideally you want to venge a major, someone else who can't venge themselves. And that way you're able to cast venge right as she throws that last auto. So that last auto also didn't venge me. Also, we did P3 Boak there, very clean. Basically, we had 2 far east crabs. In the first sets, we pop just by running to that green tile. And then the second crabs, you do a scythe and then you run in and out to pop the next crabs. And then we kill it a few hits after webs. And yeah, win. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really would appreciate like any feedback you have. I'm hoping to make a Boak guide very soon. At least starting with like Boak for P3. And I hope you have a great day. And please like and subscribe.